Stop proving your worth. Have you ever felt like you constantly had to prove yourself? Prove that you're smart enough, successful enough, good enough. I spent a lot of my life doing exactly that. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just an older fellow looking back at his life and beginning to understand why I did some of the things I did. As I've mentioned before, I grew up in foster care before eventually being raised by a wonderful French-Canadian family. They gave me a home, and I'll always be grateful for that. But somewhere along the way, I developed this feeling that I didn't quite belong. And I think part of me started believing that I had to prove my value. As I got older, that followed me everywhere. I went to college. I worked in accounting. I spent years working for the government. I tried financial planning, real estate, insurance, different businesses. I was always chasing something. More money, another opportunity, another accomplishment. At the time, I thought I was chasing success. Looking back now, I'm not so sure. I think a lot of the time I was trying to prove that I was good enough. And here's the problem with living that way. There's never a finish line. You accomplish one thing and feel good for a little while. Then you need the next thing. And if something goes wrong, a rejection, a failure, somebody criticizing you, suddenly you start questioning yourself all over again. I certainly did. For years, I thought being hard on myself was what kept me moving. But eventually, I began to wonder, what if constantly trying to prove myself was actually holding me back? Because when your worth depends on succeeding, failure becomes frightening. You hesitate. You worry about what other people think. You might even walk away from opportunities because failing would seem to confirm that old belief that maybe you're just not good enough. I can see that pattern much more clearly today. What changed for me wasn't suddenly becoming more successful. It was slowly becoming more accepting of myself. And I don't mean telling yourself you're perfect. I'm certainly not. I've made mistakes. I've lost opportunities. I've said things I regret. I've started things I didn't finish. But those things don't have to determine my value as a person. That's something it took me a very long time to understand. These days, I try to catch myself when that old voice shows up. Instead of immediately thinking, what are people going to think of me? I try asking, is this actually important to me? Instead of beating myself up when something goes wrong, I try to understand what happened and learn from it. That's a very different way of living. And strangely enough, accepting yourself doesn't mean you stop growing. I think it can actually make growth easier, because now you can make a mistake without turning that mistake into a judgment about who you are. You can fail at something without believing you are a failure. There's a big difference. So if you've spent years trying to prove your worth to your parents, your friends, your boss, your spouse, or maybe just to yourself, here's something I've learned. Maybe you don't need another accomplishment to prove you're good enough. Maybe you need to stop measuring your entire life by whether other people approve of you. I'm still learning this myself. But the older I get, the less interested I am in proving who I am, and the more interested I am in simply understanding who I am. And there's a lot of freedom in that. So let me leave you with a question. Who would you become if you stopped trying to prove that you were good enough? Maybe that's where a different kind of life begins. If conversations about our past, mindset, identity, and understanding ourselves resonate with you, consider subscribing to Inner Mind Today. We're not trying to become perfect here. We're trying to understand ourselves a little better, one conversation at a time. Take care of yourself. God bless. And I'll see you in the next one.